The biped character has several different modes that we can be in. The initial mode that you start in is called the layout mode. In the layout mode, you're allowed to select and move on the biped, rotate around the body parts, and position the character. The other modes that we have a keyframe mode, and with the keyframe mode, we're able to put animation to the character. By selecting our auto key, we can select on a body part and reposition, and set keyframes for the character. This is our keyframe mode for the biped. The other mode that we have is our actual structural mode. This is going to be called our figure mode. And in the biped rollout, we'll notice that we have a little stick man right here, and he's called our figure mode. If we left click on this one, we go into a figure mode. And in the figure mode, you'll notice that the rollouts have changed. We have track selection, bin links, which are similar to the other, and our copy-paste rollout, which is similar to the initial layout mode. The one that's different is our structure rollout. So let's left click and look at our structure rollout. You're going to notice inside of here, the first group box that we have is drop down with a body type. If you left click on this and look at it, you'll see that we can actually change out the type of skeleton that we use. This is just purely visual, so that if it's something, for instance, we have our skeleton initial, the male is going to make more of a feel. This does not change anything but the visual side of this, so that while you're animating or working with a character, it may help to see it with a certain look. We also have a female structure, and we have the classic biped structure with the boxes. Again, this may help when you're working with a character. If you're trying to do a female walk or female action, it may be beneficial to actually see the structure of the biped in that form instead. For our exercises right now, we're going to leave it on the skeleton. Below this one, we have arms. If we want to keep the arms on or off of the body, we have the option to turn these on and off. And we'll just run through each one of these real fast. The next one we have is our neck links. Neck links allow you to add additional links to the next section of the biped. And we can go all the way up to about 25 as a limit. We'll drop this back down to 1. Additional links that we have our spine links, and we can take this one up to 10. And you'll notice in here that we have quite a number of links that we can work with for bending and twisting. We'll take this one actually down to 2. Below that we have tail links. So if we're adding a tail to the character, we can take this one again up to 25 and have a tail to the character, which its initial link position is to the hip box. And we'll take this back to 0. Our other properties are ponytail links 1 and 2. This will be on the left side and right side of the head. And we can create ponytail links up to 25 for both ponytail 1 and 2. So if your character has some hair, these are just some presets that help you get started in case you need them. Next up we have our fingers. We'll zoom in on our hand a little bit. And with the hand, we have fingers. Our initial finger that we're going to start with is one on one of the index fingers. The next finger is going to start off with the thumb. And as we add additional ones, they'll reposition up to our 5 fingers. Currently we only have 1 link on our fingers, so we can add additional finger links. We can bump this up to 2 and all the way up to 3, so that we have a real hand for the character. Toes next. We have options for the toes as well. And initially we start off with just the 1 toe. We can bump that up to 2, 3, 4, and 5. And same with the toe links. We can start off with the 1, 2, or 3, depending on what your model is going to require. Below that we have props. A prop bone is something that we can use to attach additional objects to and animate with. You'll see that we have 1 prop bone on the right hand side, one on the left, and one in the center. And as we go into it, we'll learn how we can use these prop bones efficiently and effectively with Biped. We'll go ahead and turn the prop bones back off. Ankle attachment. This is going to change the placement of our ankle. And we can change this forward or backward. Again, depending on the need of your object. If you need it moved more one way or the other, you have the option and the ability to do it. And as I said before, we're able to change the height of the character. So if we do have a character and we need to change the initial height of him, we can go back into our height numerical box and drag this up and down to set the height, or type in a number for it. We'll set this right at 80. Other options, we have a triangle pelvis and a triangle neck. Both of these are going to change the objects used. We have forefeet. If we look at this one, we'll zoom back into the hand. The forefeet are going to change the hand's position, so that if we were to change this to a quadruped, where the arms become legs, we have the fingers in the right position to handle that. If we do knuckles, knuckles actually replace the basic bounding box for the hand. We still have the hand box here, but we actually have the full bone going all the way through, so that we can get a more detailed, more accurate animation with the biped. We also have the option to change off the short thumb on or off. Those are the basic properties for setting the bones that we need on our biped. Below that, we have our twist links, and on this one we're actually able to add additional bones so that we can basically soften the movement between two bones and on top of the actual mesh, the skin on top. So to make this work, we select on the twists, and let's go into our upper arm to start, and let's make this so we can see it a little bit better. We'll go ahead and turn this one back down, and we'll go Control A, and we're just Alt X just so we can do a see-through mode on the biped. And with the upper arm, you'll notice that what we're doing when we create the upper arm, we're adding additional boxes in between. Notice how it subdivides. This is going to allow more of a twist, so we have a fall off between one point and the next to make the mesh more manageable for animating and creating a bit more realism on our mesh once it's weighted. And below that, we have our forearm. The forearm is definitely going to help if you're trying to soften up some of the transition between the wrist and the forearm. You'll notice in here we've just got those bones there. You can see that if we rotate it, you'll notice that it transitions that movement from one to the next, so it softens out that bend on the rig. These are really useful. For game animations, you may be able to get away with some of it. It depends on the technical limits of the engine you're working with. If you are able to use it, I would highly suggest using it. If you're limited to some extent, then your best use and a limitation is going to be with the forearm twist and with the thigh twist. Those would be the two that I would suggest first and foremost. Again, we do have thigh twist just as before. You have your calf twist at the bottom, and if we add additional leg links, which we'll look up here again, leg links right now is set to 3. We can actually bump this up to 4, and at 4 we create more of a quadruped for an animal's leg. And with that one on, we see the horse link is on, and we can add additional twisty bones in there as well. That covers the twisty bones, and I would say if you're able to use them in your game project, absolutely use them. If you're doing CG work, then this becomes a definite. Just the game project is generally dependent on your engine technology that you're using. Our last little rollout that we have, let's go ahead and select all this and take us outside of X-ray mode. Our last rollout here at the bottom is our extras. This is going to create an additional bone type that we can use and parent to any part of the biped. This is extremely useful for creating any kind of extra bone on the biped while being able to still use the tools in the biped. If we were to create this separately as an individual just bone object inside of Max and then link it to it, that bone object isn't going to give us the properties that we have available to us inside of the biped toolset. So the extra bones here work great with the biped and allow us all of the tools that the biped has to offer. The first thing that we're going to do is create an extra, and this is just basically our bone type that we have. Its initial position is starting back here at the back. We can call this whatever we want. For instance, maybe this is wing 01. And once we have the initial label, we can say how many links do we want, and we can change this out to however many links are needed for our rig. And then we can also say where do we want this to be parented to. Currently it's parented to BIP01. So if we want to retarget the position, we can left click on our arrow, and we're simply going to say let's make it attached to the clavicle, the right clavicle. And with that, it gets attached to it. We can rotate it in position and move it accordingly. You also have the option to reorient to parent or leave it in its initial position. If we left it in initial position, it would have stayed facing back. If we want to delete the bone object, we can delete the extra. Let's pull this one back over. Our additional options down here, let's go ahead and get our object back from being deleted. And we'll select it on in our list. What we're going to notice is we have an option to create the opposite extra set of bones. So very quickly, if we had one wing set up and staged, we can create the opposite set on the opposite bone. We also have the option to sync a selection, so that what I have selected here is what I have selected inside the viewport. And our last one is select the symmetry. So if we want to adjust one set of bones and then select the other, we can have both being affected. And then in the end, we can just delete both sets, turn off our symmetry, and that does it for the basic structure rollout. The next thing we want to look at is once we've actually put all of the bones and parts and pieces on the biped that we want, we need to actually position the biped to match that of a mesh or model that we're going to be rigging it to. So while we are in figure mode, we can select on the body part, and we have a rubber band mode. And the rubber band mode allows us to actually change the bone, rescale, and resize different parts of the object. Now you notice I'm dragging along the Y, but it doesn't go up and down. This is because currently I'm set to view from my coordinate system. What we want to do is change this to local. So we're going to push on the local. And with the local set, it goes from the Y to the X. So this is the correct coordinate system for this object, the local position. And this way we can actually drag the arm up and down. We can drag it in and out, change the width, height, length, all the different properties of it. This is going to be able to be useful and apply to all of the biped, all the way across. We can change the clavicle up, we can change the spine, the head, any part and piece of the object, from the fingers all the way through the rest of the model. So using your scale tool, you can rescale the bones to fit the needs of your model. And you can also use your rotation tools and move tools to rotate. You notice, there we go, we can just rotate the arms up and into position if our character has more of a initial Y pose, T pose for our starting position. We can rotate them up. We can rotate and move the spine. So if positioning the spine needs to be different, you can move that one any location you want. You also have that same control with the neck and with the clavicles. So you can see how whatever needs you have of the biped, you should be able to fit it to the mesh that you're working with. And we'll just step back to here. Now, while you're inside of the figure mode, and that's the mode we're in right now, you're unable to do any kind of animation. If we turn on auto key, and let's say we try to do an animation, we'll get a warning. It says keys may not be set inside figure mode. If this comes up, just make sure, find out what mode you're in. You're most likely in figure mode. You can click OK. You notice that it has not set a keyframe for you. Your best bet is to make sure you have auto key off while you're working in figure mode, otherwise you'll get that warning coming up each and every time you move the biped. Now the next rollout that we want to look at, once we actually have the body in and say we've started to adjust all of the positions, all of the scale and location of our object, of our skeleton, we don't really want to have to do this for both halves, especially when you get down to fingers and you're repositioning fingers and scaling fingers the way you want them. You want to be able to transition and take a copy of one half and paste it to the other half. So in order to do this, we can go into our copy paste rollout. So we're just going to roll this one back up, go into our copy paste rollout. In the copy paste rollout, we've got some options for our collections. We want to start off with creating a new collection. When we create the new collection, we have our open, where we can open a collection, we can save the current collection, we can delete one in the list, we can delete the entire collection set, and we can also load preferences. First off, we could start off with the copy collections. We could say this is going to be our left half. Now with that, we say we're going to define this collection as left half. Now what we put in this collection is going to happen down here. And we have posture. Posture is based on whatever I have selected in the scene. So if I simply want the clavicle down to the hand and maybe the upper thigh, I can take posture and take just that copy. And you're going to see in here it's designated with red that this is what I'm copying. This is the information. And once I copy it, I have the option to paste it or paste it opposite. So I can paste this back on top, or I can paste it opposite. And since we're looking at trying to take all of this and put it over there, we'll do paste opposite. And you can see it moves the biped position on the opposite side, same as this one. The copied postures, you'll notice that it labels them with the left arm, left finger, left leg. It's basically giving you what you've selected. You have the same option here to relabel. We can say half left. And your rollout allows you in case you have additional copies that you're making. With the pose and the track, we'll look at those separately when we actually get into the animations of the character. The pose, though, just initially, you do not have to have the whole character selected. You can have simply one part. You can copy that pose, and then again paste the pose, paste it opposite, or delete it and rename it. The pose is more useful when we're actually doing animations. The main one you'll use here is going to be the posture, where you're taking just bits and pieces. You may have just, for instance, redone just like one part of the hand. Let's say we came in here and we rotated the finger. We can go back in, we can double click on the top part of the hierarchy and it'll select all the way through that chain, and we can take a copy. Notice that it's the finger right in here, and then we can paste opposite, and you can see in here that it pasted it on the other hand. So this is a great way when you're starting off setting the structure and the position of the model, that you can simply do one half of it at a time, copy that half, paste it over. If you make adjustments, just select on that one part, and then copy paste that opposite to the other side. And if you are saving out files for future use, your best bet is with your copy collections. Save this out as a collection set, and that way you can use it later. Okay, that's the copy paste here. Your bin links. In the bin links, we're going to look at the bin links and the additional back in our layout mode. So the main ones that we need to just remember: structure, setting up the basic biped, getting all of the bones that you want, then adjusting those bones in our rubber band mode with our move, scale, and rotate tools, and then repositioning any part of the biped from the clavicle, neck, and the spine to where you need it. And then in the very end, using your copy paste to actually copy sections of it and paste it over so that you can increase your workflow, and saving out a copy collection if you need it. And that should cover everything we need within the biped figure mode. One of the points that I do want to make right here at the end is that if you do not have the biped selected, you'll notice that all of the properties go away. This is dependent on the object that you have selected for the properties that come up. So with the biped, make sure that you have it selected, and that's going to give you your properties inside your motion tab. Our last thing is going outside of our figure mode and going back to our layout mode. So once we have the character positioned exactly how we want it, then we're going to go out of this mode by deselecting on the figure mode. This is going to take us back into our layout mode, and it's going to bring up all of the tools that were here before and that apply to the figure mode. You'll notice that the structure rollout isn't in here. The copy paste, the bend, and the track selection are universal to both modes. Okay, next up we're going to start breaking down each and every rollout and what they do and how they are used in the animation pipeline.